Sean is also the president of the International Order of Buddhist Ministers, one of my brothers in that order. So, please welcome him.
Thank you. The big challenging part is to keep you guys into this and not falling asleep after lunch. I have no video yet, but like I was saying, I can do an interpretive dance or something.
Okay.
Pantomime. Feel like
Keep us awake.
it should keep you awake. Yeah. Just
Yeah.
move around the room, ask questions. We'll have a quiz at the end. But anyway, I'm Reverend Dr. Sean Thompson. And like Monty said, I'm from the IOB, I'm the International Order of Buddhist Ministers. And today I'm going to give you as much information I can about Buddhism as I can. In less than an hour, that's 2,600 years of info. So be ready. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to read off all it had was a picture. So imagine there's a picture and words that I'll read to you basically. So the same kind of thing. Buddhism really is a way of living. It's a way of living what we would call a moral life. And Buddhism has been around, like I said, for about 2,600, almost 2,600 years. And it started in northern India. Today there are about 500 to 800 million Buddhists in the world. There's a few different flavors of Buddhism. I'll tell you about that as well. And I'm going to explain a little bit about where Buddhism came from, who this person, the Buddha, was, and how we work at it now. Okay, so the Buddha himself was an actual person. He was born, under a tree, and there's a story about that as well. It's his mother was on a trip to visit some other family members, other clan members, and she gave birth to this baby boy. And she died shortly thereafter, so he grew up without a mother. But he was a prince, so he didn't have to worry too much about that. And there were many people who could take care of him. He had aunties and he had grandma and all these other people. His father was a great king, and this king wanted to make sure that his son ended up as a king also and ruled even more land. So he didn't want him to be anything but that. And then when they had this first ceremonies after birth, there was a great teacher in the mountains that kind of had a dream about this. And he came down, and everybody knew this great teacher, and he came down, he saw the baby, and he started to cry. And I said, "Why are you crying?" He says, "Well, he's going to be either a good king or he's going to be a great teacher. And I'm sad because I'll never get to see either one because I'm too old. I'm going to die first." And so the king was like, "Well, I'm going to make sure he's a great king and not this, a teacher, because the teacher doesn't make any money, he doesn't control anything, he's going to go do this. I want him to take over the family business." And so he made sure that he had everything that he wanted, always. Whether it was any toys. He was spoiled rotten, we would say. So much so that when he would leave town to go on his trips to see the area, they would clear out the town and get rid of any sick people, old people, anything dirty. They would put flowers everywhere. Everything was like a parade. Okay, so he would never see anything that would disturb him. And in the process of that, it was kind of discovered he was a pretty compassionate kid and he was a gentle kid, really gentle soul. He had brothers and half-brothers and stuff who were wanting to be the warrior clan guys and shooting arrows and killing animals and, being boys, basically. And he would show up and save the animals or help the kids. He was always a champion for justice, and he didn't want anybody to be hurt. It would really upset him. And so the king again saw this. He said, "Oh, we got to do something. So what we'll do is we'll just keep him enclosed, and I'll give him even more riches, more things to be excited about." So much so that he had never even seen the outside world really. But on a few occasions, he went out and he saw, with his chariot driver, a few different... Oh, he's going to try one part? Let's try one more time. He's got one
a projector.
Oh, a projector. Let's try that. Oh, I get to read the stuff too. But anyway, I keep going. So, as he was growing up, he had one chariot driver, and he would go out on these trips. And of course, they were trying to make sure that he didn't see anything terrible or anything scary. And so what they would do is clear up the thing, and one day he happened to see a sick person. Someone looked very bad. And he asked his chariot driver, he said, what's this guy's thing? Why does he look like that? So he's sick. That's what happens to us. He's like, wait a minute, what happened to us? Who? Me? Yeah, absolutely, you could get sick. Is it going to happen to my dad? Maybe. Happen to your mom? Maybe. Is it going to happen to anybody else? Maybe so. And so that disturbed him. The second vision he saw, the second time he went out, he saw an old person, bent over with age, nearly crippled. And so he was like, what's wrong with this guy? Is he also sick? No, he's just old. What do you mean old? He says, am I going to get old like that? I said, yeah, probably, if you're lucky. He says, your father going to be that way? Yes, if he's lucky. What do you mean, I'm lucky, I'm going to look like that? That's terrible. I thought it was terrible. The third one he went to, he saw, the third trip out, he saw a funeral procession on accident. He's like, well, what's going on there? Why are those people so upset? He says, well, they have a dead person that they loved. He says, what do you mean? Well, wait. So people are going to die? He says, yes, everybody dies. No. I'm a prince. We don't do that. He says, yes, you'll die. Your father will die. Everybody you know will die. And he's like, this is terrible. Why I don't want to be here? It's very disturbing to me. So later on, the final trip, he saw what we would call now an ascetic, or a sage, right? This guy was dressed in rags and ratty hair and just was like sitting in contemplation. What is his problem? He doesn't look very sick. He doesn't look good. He doesn't look sick. He doesn't look old. He's not dead. What's his deal? He said, well, he's like a wandering mendicant, right? The only people that they had in those days really were the Brahmins. The Brahmins were a highest class of people. And they were very well dressed, and they were very well taken care of. And he wasn't a Brahmin, you had to be born into that. He said, well, who's this guy? He's like, he wasn't born into any of these, what is he? Well, he's foregone those things, and he's trying to find peace. And he was like, oh, I like that. So he started thinking about that, and eventually he became so disturbed with all of the trouble he had seen. He had seen wars, and how many people were killed. And he had seen famines now, so he decided to get out and go. And his poor father was trying to take care of things and make sure he didn't see anything, and just failed miserably. So one day, he decided, I'm done. I'm going to take off. So he cut his hair off, gave away his stuff, told Chandler to take care of the horse. I'll see you later. And he left. And he said, I got to find a way to get out of this kind of suffering, this kind of trouble, this kind of hardship that I see. And so he wandered around and found teachers. And these teachers would tell him, well, this is what you got to do. You want to get out of that problem, you got to follow my recipe, and you got to do it exactly as I say, and I guarantee you, or your money back, you'll get everything that you wanted. He's like, okay, so he would do exactly what he was taught. And teacher after teacher, he would do exactly what they told him. And it never worked. And so he became even disheartened at that. He says, well, I guess I got to do it myself. So he took off, and he walked even further away and just sat under a tree. He got angry and frustrated. He said, I'm not leaving this tree until this happens, until I find out what's going on. And I figure it out and I get out of it. And he sat and he sat and he sat. And he started thinking, this is going to take a while probably. And he refused to eat. So in his refusal to eat, he became skinny. He became pale. He became bony and sinewy. And you may have seen those statues. There's a skinny statue, very sunken eyes. And he's got veins all over, and you can see his windpipe even. And you can see the heart pumping in his chest. He was so skinny because he hadn't eaten. He was sitting under a tree. And it just so happened a young girl came to leave an offering to a tree god that they had. That part of the world, they had gods for everything. So her boss had made an offering to this tree god a month or two before and wanted a son, or 6 months before, whatever. Wanted to have a son. Please give me a son. Here's an offering to the tree god. She had a son. Says, well, then I'm going to do this every full moon. I'm going to come here and, give an offering. So she did. And this poor little girl wanted to bring an offering to the tree god. Didn't know who it was. Sees this guy sitting on the tree. Says, that must be him. Goes to make him an offering. He wakes up. What are you doing? He's just like, well, you're the tree god. He's like, I'm no tree god. He's all, I'm just sitting here trying to, find enlightenment, find my peace. And she said, well, you're not going to do it this way because you're going to die. You should probably eat something. And so he said, well, yeah, that's right. So he ate. Okay, his other friends were like, how dare you, you broke your promise, you ate. Oh, terrible. And he sat and he was like, so it's perfect. Yay! That took to the computer as well? Oh, awesome. So there we go. see what I can do. A little small. Hey, can you guys see?
Yes.
Lovely. Let me go back. Starting over again? No.
Thank you.
Are you gonna sit? You wanna move this or I'm gonna stand in front of you? You okay?
Yeah, we'll go with that. Well, right in front of it, of course.
So anyway, so back on track. So he's sitting there eating this cookie and said, well, you know what? That's pretty smart, that little girl. I don't know why we don't give her more accolades for that, because she did quite a, that was a good lesson, you know, like, eat, basically. And then he heard, so he was thinking, you know what, I was all the way on one side and had all of the riches I could ever imagine, and all of the things I could ever want, and all of the partying, and all of the foods, and all of the greatest things. And that didn't make me happy. And I went the other way and gave away absolutely everything, so much that I almost died, and that also didn't make me happy. There's got to be something. And he heard someone playing a lute, like a guitar, and they were tuning it. And he realized that like a guitar string, such as our life, if it's too loose, it won't play. If it's too tight, it'll break. And if you go right in the middle, you can tune it just right. And so that's why we have what we call the middle path. And so Buddhism is really called the middle path. Here we go through here. His mother died shortly after he was born. He was prophesied to be either a teacher or a guru. His father tried to prevent him. Later, after he became enlightened, which means awakened, that's all it means. The Buddha, Bud means light. So he's the Buddha, the one of light, the one that woke up is what it really means. He has no more dirt in his eyes is what they say. A young Brahmin came to him and said, so you think you're all that? Are you a god? And he replied, no. He said, you're not a god, so are you a demon? He said, no, I'm not a demon. He says, okay, so you're not a demon, not a god, you're a man. He said, no, I'm awakened. And that's different. He transcended being just man. He transcended being just the attached human. He transcended, he's not a demon, he's not a god. He never claimed to be a demon, never claimed to be a god, never claimed to be a prophet, never claimed to be a messiah, anything like that. He's just, I'm a man. I'm an awakened one. What else? So there's the excursions he had. There we go. He was sitting under a tree. There we go. His first teaching. So once he achieved that enlightened beingness, he came back to his friends who were mad at him for having a cookie from before. You know, and they were like, "You're out of the club. You can't be with us. You washed up." But he looked much different, and they were like, "Wow, something different about this guy. Let's hear what he has to say." We're still mad at you about the cookie. And so he told them, I said, this is what happened. He gave them this sermon, which is the sermon, it's called the Teachings of the Four Noble Truths. He said, this is what I discovered. Listen up, guys. And he said, where do we go? Where's my first? There we go, the first sermon. There's what are called Four Noble Truths. And we say noble truths because they're truths that really are irrefutable until we really think about it. The first noble truth is the truth of suffering, the truth of stress, the truth of uncomfortableness, that all beings experience this. The second noble truth is to explain it, because there's a cause to this suffering, and that cause of suffering is attachment, desire, and want. You know, you want things to be different than they actually are. The third noble truth has to do with part of, now we can say, is there something we can get out of this? Can we get out of it? Yes, indeed, we can. And the fourth noble truth is called the Eightfold Path. That's a prescription. The Buddha is commonly known as a physician of the mind, is what they would say. And the reason he's called a physician of the mind is because this is actually something that physicians did in those days in the Ayurvedic traditions, the Indian medical tradition, is they had to do four things in order to complete their work and be paid. The first one is to state whether there was a disease or not. What is this disease? And then, what is the cause of the disease, the second part. The third part, can it be treated? Is it curable? And the fourth, give the prescription. That's exactly what we have here. Different kinds of suffering, though, we have to look at suffering and it's like, what do you mean by suffering? I grew up as an Irish Catholic. So we had hell, obviously, as kind of a focus. And so we knew what suffering was. You're going to suffer in hell, man. That means you're going to burn, and whatever. There's no coffee. I mean, all the bad things you can think of. There's nothing. I mean, it's it's obvious suffering. You know, there's pain involved, but suffering can be much more subtle than that. Suffering can just be uncomfortableness. Suffering is in here, the suffering of pain. Okay, whether that's emotional pain or physical pain. The suffering of change. You know, like when someone dies, that's change, right? And we suffer a lot. When we lose a job, that's change. When something we have, there's no more ice cream left, that's change. We can suffer. It's a wide range. And the third one is the suffering of conditionality. And the conditionality is also, it has a lot to do with change as well. Conditions is really how things develop. We would say conditionality really is karma. Okay? So if I go running out in the street and hit by a car, it was because I ran out in the street and got hit by a car. That's the karma. I decided to do it. A car happened to be coming by, I didn't look. That was my karma to get hit. Okay, that's conditioned. Other ways of suffering too, you can say like just not being where you want to be. Or being with who you don't want to be. You know, sitting forever in the DMV. That's a kind of suffering. But we have the Eightfold Path. This is the remedy for all of those things. And if we start to practice this is our way of practice as Buddhists. And so we try to do these 8 items to try and have a better life. And it begins with right view, like how we see things. How do you perceive when something occurs? Are you seeing it correctly? The second one, right intention. Once you've seen it, now what do you want to do? What's your intention every morning when you wake up? What's your intention when doing any kind of task? Is it to get it done, or is your intention to be doing something else, being out of your mind? You know, thinking of something else while you're doing this. Right speech is like, you know, how do you speak? I mean, are you saying things that are helpful? Are you saying things that are non-helpful? Are you wasting your time? Are you gossiping? Are you lying? These kind of things. Right action, the stuff that you do with your intentions in view. Actions like, you know, and this is also that we were talking about karma running in the street. You know, right action, did you look both ways?
Okay.
Right? Was your intention to get across the street? Did you look both ways? And you saw there were no cars, it's safe to walk. That's really right action. Right livelihood has to do with, of course, how we work. In the Buddhist tradition, he mentions more, these are things not to do, like slave trade was the thing, don't do that. Animal trade, don't do that. Raising animals for slaughter, don't do that, because these are things that cause suffering. Being weapons trades will cause suffering. Being some kind of war trade, that creates suffering. Creating drugs that don't help people, that creates suffering. That's not a good, we call it skillful. That's not a skillful means. Like, you're not going to get betterment from doing those kind of things. Right effort is what you put into it, what kind of energy you put into it. Right mindfulness and right concentration have to do more with how you contemplate the things that you do. Right concentration, of course, this is an easy one, pretty obvious. As we said before, it's like if you're cutting a tomato, you're cutting a tomato. If you're not paying attention, you're thinking about the other stuff you have to do, you end up cutting a finger. So we have to be careful. And that's what all of these are. They're very basic. This is a very basic and simple way of doing things. We take also what are called, yes sir?
Just a question. Is that a stair-step thing you do, that you do A, B, C, and D?
Not really. I mean, you can think of it that way, and it's kind of set up that way because it's to have right view takes some development, and then it'll lead you to hopefully a right intention, and then all of the rest will fall apart. They're sectioned in 3 parts. One is action-based, one is contemplative-based, and remember the 3? Morality. Yeah, morality. So they're kind of like just clumped together. The thing with what you'll see in this too is a lot of numbers. So everything was also kind of categorized into clumps. So that we have the 4 Noble Truths. Here we have the Eightfold Path. We're going to get the 5 precepts. You have the 5 aggregates, the 5 fetters. You're going to get the 18 of these, and the 6 of those, and the 4 of them, and the 3 of those.
Is that because it's easier to remember?
Easier to remember, yeah. It was much easier for them to remember, and you know, I mean, at the end they just ask you when the train's going to get to Chicago. And that's what hampered me when I first started reading this stuff, because it seemed like a math problem, and I just hated math. So I was like, I'll never get through this because I know they're gonna ask me for something at the end. You know, there's gonna be like some big formula. You know, and I'm like, I can't do that. But let's see. So we take then, these ones are all also, here's another list of things. As a lay person, a non-monk, we take certain precepts. These are like the commandments, but they don't come from outside. These are things that we promise to try to work on. Notice I said try, because you're going to fail. Okay, and that's just one of the things that happens. So we don't want to like hassle us too soon. We do things and we word them specifically refrain. Sometimes these things happen. Refrain from taking a life. Okay, it doesn't say thou shalt not anything. Because you know what, then you can get, wow, big trouble in that one. Because what if you're driving and you hit a bird? You're responsible for that bird's life. You killed that bird. So we try not to do that. Not by swerving and crashing and causing another accident. But by like, you know, can we go slow enough? We have good enough lights. You know, we can do the best we can. Sometimes these things don't happen. Refrain from taking a life also is a little bit different than just killing, because taking a life could be, well, the example I use is little kid would take the wings off a fly. The fly's still alive, but you took its life. It won't last very long. You didn't kill it. You took away its ability to be a fly. Okay, and that's how it made its existence. So, like taking a fish out of water. You know, taking a fish out of water, putting it on the land because you think it's drowning. And that's not very skillful. Also, it took the life of that poor fish. He's supposed to be in the water. Second one is refrain from taking what is not given, and that's not just stealing. It means also not taking something that you find somewhere. So if you find a wallet, you know, if you turn it in or something, you shouldn't take it. It's not yours. Refrain from sexual misconduct. That does have to do with all relations, and it's in those days they were more defining it as any kind of sexual activity which would harm you or someone else, and that means directly, not only directly but indirectly. So like you can't, like say someone was betrothed to someone else, you can't be with them because they're already promised. And that's a no-no. So we have to keep ourselves, you know, moral on those things. The fourth one, refrain from harmful speech. Notice it doesn't say don't lie, because if someone comes in and says, I'm looking for John, and John is here, and I say, why are you looking for John? I want to kill him. I say, oh, well, he went down that way, right about 6 miles, go find him. You know, and then I can tell John, hey, let's go hide you. Okay, that's lying, right? But what's the difference? Harmful speech. Oh, he's right here, smack, dead. You know, so we have to, and that takes some skill. That takes some contemplation. And then the last one is refrain from intoxicants which make you heedless. Heedless is important. Basically it means make you dumb and do stupid things. You know, you can have 1 glass of wine, of course, but 7, you probably won't be doing much for the next couple hours. You know, and if you have something to do, then you have a headache the next day. So this is what we're trying not to do. And this is so we can live a better life here and now. And a lot of Buddhism stuff is about here and now. We're not worried about tomorrow, we're not worried about the past. We're trying to really get to this point now. A monk or a nun, they'll take over 250 vows. Women even more. I mean, nuns more than men, you know, because they have different needs. Some of them will have to do with what they can and can't do, what they can and can't eat, when they can eat, how they can eat, where they can, whatever. I mean, there's so many rules. You know, they can't eat after the midday. Anything. They can't have more than the 8 items that they're supposed to have. Well, how do they do that if they have to have credit cards and cell phones and these kind of things? So some of them are going to have to change because it just doesn't make sense, but they're designed to keep people in the community of monks called the Sangha. The community of monks had to be very well organized. And they would shave their heads, you know, and it's not only just because they were trying to get rid of, like, you know, spending too much time with their hair, but also there's bugs. You know, and it's very hard to sit and be serious about contemplating when you're scratching all the time. That was one of the things. And also it made them look different than everybody else because everybody had, I guess, nice hair or something like that. Basic Buddhist teachings too, we have what are called the 3 Dharma seals, or the marks of existence. We already talked about suffering. You see here's impermanence. Impermanence means everything changes. It's a concept that we continue to really look at in Buddhism, and we try to understand it, that everything, even people change. So we can have someone that we really like, for example, and they become sour with us for some reason. Now, there's reasons for all of that, and if we're careful and we contemplate enough, maybe we can start seeing those or understanding those things. And the last one is non-self. That's the sticky wicket. That's the hardest one to explain. The non-self is because it's really trying to explain to us and have us understand and own that we're interrelated with all beings. That we have an impact on them, they have an impact on us. If we start doing that, we start taking care of things better. Because now we have to consider other people. It's kind of like cleaning up after yourself is one of those things. It's not just for you. You have to do things for other people too. We try to cultivate these four main things here, and we do it through meditation usually, or through contemplation. There's two types of meditation. There's one called samatha, and there's one called vipassana. Samatha is most are familiar with it. It's sitting and breathing, and being calm, becoming still. Vipassana is taking a concept. Basically, it's taking one concept and mulling it over. Okay, it's like you're concentrating on one thing, and you're going to get an insight out of it. That's what the Buddha did, and he's like, how do I get out of suffering? How do I get out of suffering? Well, wait a minute, does everybody suffer? So he had to go through this process and really boil things down to their littlest bits, and he was able to do that. But here we try to cultivate loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. So loving kindness is we try to just be gentle in the world and kind. The second one, compassion, is we start to see, the other example I use is you see a mouse inside your house. Your choices are to kill it or not. But if you would start to realize that having compassion, that poor little mouse was trying to get away from a snake from outside. He wasn't trying to come in here and do anything to you. Then you're like, well, you know what, I can not be as mean to this guy. Maybe I can catch him and put him back outside. Because he's just trying to have a normal day like you. Nothing different. Sympathetic joy is when somebody else has something wonderful happen, you're as happy as for them as you are for yourself or whatever it would be. Someone else wins a lottery. You're like, oh, that's wonderful. I hope you really do well with it, and I hope everything's great. Rather than, oh, he won it and I didn't. It's that kind of thing. Equanimity is even-mindedness. That's just not getting upset or overjoyed either way. And that's because we understand that things are changeable. That even-mindedness, if something really great is happening, we should be more contemplative in that and say, you know what, it's going really good, I better enjoy it. Because it might change. You don't know. Tomorrow you can go out and get hit with a rock, or anything can happen. And the other side of the coin too is if things are going bad, we can be emboldened and say, you know what, it ain't gonna last. Right? Buddhism also is a very fluid religion. It can change, and it doesn't change its original teachings, but it can change your perception. And the idea with this is you have to put everything to a litmus test. So you have to take it, you have to practice it, you have to consider it, reconsider it, and then you accept it or not. If it's not acceptable, leave it alone. It's done. Absorb what is useful, as Bruce Lee said. He said, if it's not useful, don't use it. That makes sense, right? So here, if you come across something in the Buddhist teachings that flies in the face of your own sense of reason, you are not obligated to accept it. So this quote here, your own sense of reason, but also there's a caveat with that you need to develop your sense of reason correctly. Because if you just don't believe it, because you assume, and that leads to the next part, which is what's called the advice to the Kalamas. In the Buddhist meanderings about teaching, he came to a place called the Kalamas, and the people there were upset, and they said, we don't want any of your, these teacher guys coming here anymore, because every time you guys come here, you make us undo everything that we did from the last idiot, and then we have to, you tell us how bad that was, and we do everything again, and then it happens all again, and nothing ever works, and you say, if we do this, it'll rain, and if we do this, it won't rain, and it doesn't work, so why should we listen to you? He said, I don't want you to listen to me. And we're like, well, wait, what? Don't listen to me. Especially don't listen to me because it's tradition. Don't listen to me because you think I'm a teacher. Don't listen to me because you were told by somebody else. Don't listen to me because it's written down. Don't listen to me, or don't accept these trainings for any of those reasons until you have tested it. Once you have tested it, then you will see the truth. You shall develop your own mind, and then you choose. And that would work here because Missouri is the show me state, right? Show me what's real. As Buddhism moved through the world, from India, so it started in northern India, right near Nepal. That's where the Buddha was born, and then of course he went walking. And if you know how big India is, it's gargantuan. But he walked all over the place, and I have no idea how he did that because there's a lot of walking he did. But it was over. He became enlightened when he was around 35. He died when he was in his 80s. So that's about 50 years. 50-year walk. You can go a lot of places in 50 years. As it moves throughout the world, it did change. We have here what we call these four, we'll call them really there's 3 flavors or 2 flavors, but we'll say there's 4 flavors of Buddhism. Okay, and you've seen these, and it gets very confusing sometimes, so I'll try and explain that real quick. Theravada is the way of the elders. This is the original teaching. We call it Orthodox Buddhism. They have the original teachings of the Buddha, and that's what they stick to. Like anything else is just, no, we just keep the originals. That's what we have. This is what he said, this is what his original disciples said. After that, it's all commentary. And we don't really mess with that. The second set is called Mahayana. Maha means great. And Yana are like Vada or Yana, Therayana, you could say Theravada or Mahavada. That means vehicle or way. The Mahayana is the greater of the ways. Everything else was called Hinayana in those days. It was the lesser. It was like the lesser teachings. There was lesser teaching and greater teaching. And that was mostly one group of people trying to stick it to the other ones by saying they're just the little ones, you know. You sit at the kids' table, we're at the big table. Mahayana you'll see mostly in China and up through China, Korea, and into Japan. And subgroups of Mahayana is Vajrayana. This is what the Dalai Lama is. Okay, the Dalai Lama is a Vajrayana. Also, any Tibetan, Nepali stuff is Vajrayana, means the diamond vehicle. The Dalai Lama is not our Pope. Okay, he's not the leader of Buddhism. He's the leader of one section of one section. He just happens to be the one that has the most press time. Okay, the next one would probably be in the Zen tradition or Chan tradition would be Thich Nhat Hanh. Just because he has more press time, he's not our leader. Actually, there's really not that kind of hierarchy. There's no one person that runs the whole schmear. You'll have different lineages, for example. So after the Buddha did his thing, some guys broke off and said, you know what, we really like this section, and we like that. So you like Protestants. You know, different Protestants, you know, they came across and put a post-it on the door and said, I don't like this, this, and this. And I said, I'm going to start my own thing. You know, and then eventually Anglican and all these different ones started. And that's the same, that's exactly what happened with us. As we get down to Zen, Zen is the way of no way, and we find that in China, it's called Chan. That's what these robes are. These are Chan robes. So this is the tradition that we're taught. And by way of no way, we mean that we're not trying to follow that one teacher. We're not trying to follow that one way. It has to happen very spontaneously. And we believe that the nature of Buddhism and the nature of the Buddha, the awakened one, is in everybody. It's just we haven't found it yet. You know, it's like the spirit of, like they were talking at the keynote, he said the light of Christ is in everyone. You know, like Monty was saying in the last one, it says like even the 3 angels, he says, you know, they said God had asked these angels, you know, where are we going to hide humanity? Or what are we going to do with heaven? And he said, one said, we'll put it up in the sky, they'll never find it. Never, no, they'll find it, believe me. And he says, we'll put it bottom of the ocean, they'll never find it. He says, no, they'll get down there eventually, they'll find it. And the third one said, let's put it inside each person. They're never going to find it. Because nobody wants to look inside. And that's what Zen Buddhism really tries to do with that. Buddhism today, we're looking at, it's all through Asia, of course. It's coming through Europe. And it's got a foothold here in the United States and other places like, you know, Mexico and Canada. It's in its new infancy stages. Each time it goes to a new place, it has to absorb some of that culture. So that's why we see the different traditions also. So like, for example, that Vajrayana we were talking about in Tibet, their original religion there is called Bon. And the Bon religion is like a shamanistic religion. There's a lot of deities, and there's a lot of much more Hindu reference. And so you see Hindu gods and goddesses in the Vajrayana Buddhist teachings, which the Theravada was trying to get rid of. They're telling it's too confusing. Let's not do that. And then as you see it change over, it goes to China. In China, like, so if you go to a temple, if you go to a Zen temple, you won't see anything. It'd be a room like this. Even less, probably. I mean, you just have this and maybe one piece of paper on the wall that said something that some master had written, and one flower, and then maybe a bowl of water. That's it. And we sit on the floor, and it's all contemplative. If you go to a Theravada church or a Theravada temple, you'll generally see a single Buddhist statue and maybe a few little offerings. In a Chinese temple, you'll see a big golden Buddha with two different ones on the sides, plus maybe deities like protection guys. There's these generals that protected the Dharma, and they're memorialized in that way. And then you also see like things like in a Mahayana church or temple, you'll see what's it called? Ancestor worship things, because they were big into that. You're supposed to know your ancestors back 7 generations to make offerings to them. And then in like, what was it? That's everybody, I think, right? But anyway, here in this country, we have many Buddhist centers. You'll see different ways that the Buddhists have done the stuff that they do. Locally here in Missouri, we have Reverend Monty's center, which is the Vipassana Buddhist Church, and the Center for Buddhist Development, right here in Jefferson City. We also have another one called the Mid-American Buddhist Association in Augusta. And then there's other like here the Show Me Dharma Meditation Group in Columbia. And so some of them are very strict in their teachings, and some of them are very loose. And we're trying to find out where, we have Mahayana, Theravada, Vajrayana. We need a Mahayana, like American something. So what's that going to look like? Is it going to be skeet shooting and fishing, or is it going to be race cars? We don't know yet, and it's okay. I mean, we can adapt to those kind of things. So basically, that's Buddhism in a nutshell. Okay, as much as we can get through in the time we have. So, any questions? Yes, sir.
I keep hearing the term Tao.
The Tao. Oh, that I wish I put that in there. Tao means the way.
Yeah.
The Tao Te Ching. And that was the Chinese portion. Now, the 3 in China, okay, they have the 3 main teachings. One is the Tao, and that's for your relationship to the universe and nature. One is Confucianism, and one is Buddhism. So it kind of mixed in. Taoism is what mixed in from China, and in Japan we have Shintoism. So they had to mix, and they would adopt, some of the other practices. You'll see things in a Japanese Buddhist temple and ceremony that you won't see in any other country. Likewise in the other ones as well. So.
I was just going to ask, did the Buddha intend to create a religion?
He actually was gonna nobody's gonna get this, I'm out of here, guys. I figured it out, good luck to you. I'm finished. Nobody's gonna understand it, you're gonna ridicule me, it's gonna be hard, la la la. And it was his first friends, the guys who were like picking on him about eating cookies. They're the ones like, are you kidding? This is brilliant. You have to teach this. Come on, you have to, please. Please. They're like, well, I guess if you guys will listen for a while. And then just started growing from there. But he didn't set out to at first he didn't set out to, I'm going to change the world. Because I want to change it for me. He was he's very selfish that way, right? We think of it. But if you don't start with yourself, you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anyone else. Right? And then later on, we have what are called the Bodhisattva vows. The Bodhisattva vows, I was saying the other one, it's hard to remember what I said and what I haven't said. In my office, I have a statue of a monk. He's his name Chittagarbha, or Jizo in Japanese. And Jizo was a monk who had attained the ultimate highness of his work. He became what we call enlightened. And so the thing is, in there, you don't get reborn again. You have no more problems. You get to go to the heaven place and just be cool and groovy and have a great life. And he was like, I'm not doing that. They're like, are you kidding? You achieved the big thing. You don't want it? He says, no, I'm going to go to hell. I said, why would you go to hell? It's hot there. And he says, well, I'm going to go to hell, and I'm going to save all the beings in hell first. He says, you do understand that it's always being refilled. He says, I will keep working until the hell is empty. and then I'll take that. But I can't do it until they're all gone out of there. So that's the Bodhisattva vows, and you hear it more in Tibetan. You take vows to help everybody else before yourself. So everybody else gets off the ship before you do, like the captain. So, any other? Yes, sir.
How did Buddhism was it introduced into America? I think I know, but I'm curious how you would answer it.
Mostly through Japanese. The Japanese brought it first. Okay. Chinese probably, but Chinese, for some reason, Chinese has been less approachable. For some, for some reason, Japanese seem to be an easier fit for American kind of ways. I really think that it started being adopted in the 60s, late 50s, early 60s.
Well, the reason I've asked is, I wonder, the Vietnam War. So millions of Americans were in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And Buddhism was definitely present there.
Yes.
And, it's awfully hard to be a soldier and think about faith, but I suppose it's possible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's where like Thich Nhat Hanh came over from that area during right around 64, 5, 6, something like that. He came over here to try to rally for peace there, and just kind of got some press time. So that did help Buddhism. Other ones that came here would be like Chogyam Trungpa, who started Naropa University. Trying to DT Suzuki maybe. Some guys from different countries. And the problem was in the 50s and 60s, 60s, let's say 60s up in the 70s, it was like everything else is cool. So they had any guy with a beard and a turban was the cool and groovy dude, man. You could just tune in and whatever and do some yoga and go crazy. And so some of them came over and brought their teachings very seriously. Some brought it to the counterculture, and it just so happened a lot of the things we see, and even in Buddhism too, they're like, hey, it's cool, man. There's no rules for you. You're supposed to figure out the rules yourself and apply them for yourself, but there's no rules from the outside. So people are like, well, then I'm drinking all this stuff and taking all the drugs and all that kind of stuff, and that obviously petered out. Luckily, because in the 70s we started getting more, or 60s, we started getting more and more very serious people who were like, well, this is really working for me, and it started to develop into a more Americanized version.
Well, my first contact with Buddhism was a paperback book, Religions of the World, and there was a chapter in there on Buddhism. I remember I read it, I think I was in high school, and this is interesting.
Yeah.
Well, but for a Kansas farm boy, it opened up a world.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, a bunch different than Kansas. You weren't in Kansas anymore, were you? The first one I had, the very first book I got was in college as well. And I was in college and someone gave me a book called Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse.
Yeah.
And it's just the story of this guy, and I'm like, this is a great freaking story. I need more. And then I found Ram Dass and stuff like that. I mean, it got confusing, more and more confusing, and then it kind of came back, because a lot of the books that I read, the 3 Pillars of Zen, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, and those kind of things, which were popular books in the 70s, were very kind of confusing. They were way above my intellectual level at the time. Yes, sir.
Are you familiar with Deepak Chopra?
Yes, Deepak Chopra. Yeah.
I've seen him in several interviews over the years.
Yeah.
I guess he's in that same realm of beliefs and Buddhist and Tibetan.
Yeah, he his first book, something mind, something body. I can't remember what was it. His first book, but it was a really good book, and he uses a lot of Buddhist concepts. Now, he's Hindu,
Oh, okay.
so but if you really look at Buddhism, it's just Hinduism for export. It's Hinduism stripped down to its basics so that other people can handle it. Because if you go to a Hindu temple, especially in India, you're going to be in for a ride. Because it may be the temple of the rat god. And so the whole thing is just clamoring with rats. And they're being fed and petted and brushed and cared for. And you're like, what the?
Well, aren't cows?
Cows are sacred.
Sacred in
Yeah.
India.
In the south part of India, you have to, if they come in your shop, you just wait for them to leave.
Yeah.
You can't poke them, hit them, or no hamburgers.
Yeah.
Actually, there was problems recently where some Hindus in those areas are attacking other groups that either transport cattle, you know, for market, or raise cattle for market. You know, and they're like, this is a sacred animal. And these people are like, well, wait a minute, we have McDonald's down the road, and we're not gonna make veggie burgers. You know? So they try, and they're like, well, make some other burger. You know, so people get very enraged about those things. So
I was just wondering if your experience, how your experience of Buddhism maybe has changed over the years, if you've seen an evolution in yourself.
I have. I mean, I started, okay, like I said, I started as a Irish Catholic. And I don't unidentify with that at all. I mean, I still, there's really good teachings in all of these things. I try to find the common ground. And when I first started, when I started with this stuff, it was out of, you guys maybe remember, there was an old TV show called Kung Fu with David Carradine. And I was like, oh, I want to go beat stuff up and then be a monk too, man. Easy haircut, very simple. Get some cool tattoos, great. I really liked that stuff, but I wasn't a violent kid either. I mean, I tried. I tried to be violent. I tried to get into martial arts a lot, and I really tried to use that as my thing. I wanted to have martial arts studios when I was really young, and so I was practicing all the time, and I messed my back up. I was like, well, plan B. You know, and so it wasn't that, but I was still interested, and so I still studied the philosophy. And for me, it's made me way more calm and way more compassionate. Because I used to be cranky. You know, especially I lived in LA. So in LA, like everything is like, go, 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 hurry up, you're late. You know, like people get in front of you, you get right up on them. You drive right up on them, you got to get ahead of them, and all this kind of stuff. And so I started noticing I was getting a little cranky with everything. And luckily I was already at the temple just going for classes, meditation. Like I went to his first meditation class in I think 1996 or 7, something like that. The first meditation class I did at that temple. And because I was starting to realize like I'm getting pretty edgy all the time. And I'm just being cranky. And it's not helping me. And so I started hanging out with these guys, and the monks tend to be pretty calm guys. So it rubs off. You know, and then as I started to really listen and more study and read, I started realizing it is about, well, like I explained before, like meditation itself. I started meditation. And I was like, I can do this. I'm sitting down and doing nothing. Sign me up. You know, I don't have to get anything, no work. But it is a lot of work, and it's simple, but it's really tough. And one of the things that as I started to get more and more into it, I started to teach, and I had to really think of like what it's doing for me. And I realized that I would sit, right? You'd sit in meditation first. You sit to become still. And that's not just your body, but also you start to still your mind and your heart. And then you become still, that makes you calm. And you start to see things a little bit differently. You start to see things kind of more as they are than you're upset with them. You know, because you find one thing that goes wrong, you can have a whole story behind it that never happened. You know, like all the crazy things go on inside your head. You know, most of it never happened. And then after you see things as they really are, you start to develop some like, well, now you're starting to really think about things. You start to have some compassion and some empathy. Like maybe someone was angry with you or curt with you when you were at the store. They didn't look you in the eye. They didn't say thank you. They didn't open the door. Whatever that was. Or for like someone drove in front of you and cut you off. You're so mad at them. But then I had to think like, well, wait a minute. What are the other options? Was he just being a jerk because he saw my little green truck and said, I'm going to cut that. I hate green trucks. I don't know what he's saying. You know, I see a beard guy in the back. I'm going to eat him. Nothing. But I don't know that. I don't know what's going on in his head. But it could be he just got a phone call that his wife fell down the stairs. Right? Or he's trying to get to the hospital for his child. Or anything. I mean, it could be so many things could have gone wrong in his day. And if I don't have that like stillness for me, and like pause between the action and my action, that action and my action, things can go wrong. You know, I'm trying to like reduce that. I'm trying to be a little bit more like thoughtful, I guess. Yes, ma'am.
Do the groups have a regular service?
You mean like the ones here? Well, that would be Monty's. He does. He has a Wednesday evening
Meditation.
meditation Wednesdays and Thursdays, and they do have a service on Sundays.
So if the public, if somebody from a Christian background would walk into the service, would we feel comfortable? Would we be welcome?
Oh, yeah, it's pretty open. And something that Sean was saying, Buddhism, wherever it goes, it kind of absorbs the place. Well, if you go into a Buddhist temple in India, it looks like a Hindu temple. You go into a Buddhist temple in China, it looks like a Taoist temple. Here, the oldest organized Buddhist group started in 1880. They were called the Buddhist Churches of America. It's actually, like I said, Japanese or Jodo Shinshu. But if you go into one of their temples, it looks like a Christian church. The only thing is there's different stuff on the altar. And so it's Buddhism's real fluid.
And it's also difficult, and I had this problem too. I was very interested in Buddhism, but I was terrified to go inside. I don't know what's happening. What am I supposed to do? You walk in there, take your shoes off. Okay, you run outside. What are they supposed to do? No gum. All these things you're supposed to do. And like even when you go to Catholic, right? There's the anointing of the water. You're crossing yourself. You're kneeling all over the place. Do I kneel on the right knee, the left knee? Do I lay down? Do I stand up? Do I turn around? Kneel, stand, book. I don't know. I mean, each one is different, and so now we're starting to see that we're trying really hard to make it open for more people. Because it's a sanctum. Here we come here, we don't want to like jump around and take selfies, and we're trying to be solemn because it's supposed to be a serious thing, and we try to have that respect. But like from the outside, it can be very intimidating, for everybody. And you go in, things are so different. I mean, you go to a Tibetan place. Oh man, you go in there and there's like smoke in the air. There's all candles, and there's like all these pictures of these demons and stuff, and there's horns, and there's hats, and there's people leaning back and forth. You're like, what is going on here? And then you say, well, that's Buddhism. You go to a Zen place, and everybody's just sitting very still. And you're like, should I be whispering, or is something going to happen? Should I do anything? Whatever, those kind of things. Yes?
So what is a Sunday service like?
Well, usually what we do in the services, well, at our center we have a morning service, English service from 9 to 10. Then Theravada service from 10 to 11. Then 11 to 12 we have the Mahayana service. And then we have a discussion from 12 to 1. And with what we usually do is we'll go through reciting certain sutras, and we mainly do them in English in the English service, and interspersed with meditation, and that's pretty much it.
Any singing or chanting?
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, chanting of the sutras.
Oh yeah.
And then when you go into the Chinese, then yamo ni fo namo, yeah, and then you're singing and you're banging on drums, and so that's kind of what we do with the Mahayana service.
Where are you located?
Right in the corner of Madison and Dunklin.
Okay.
Right next to the clock sign.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Two questions. In Missouri,
I have a theory.
Oh,
Just because somebody puts Tabasco in your oatmeal, doesn't mean you have to eat it.
absolutely right. Yes. Unless you like Tabasco in your oatmeal. Yes, ma'am.
Two questions. So in Missouri, how many Buddhist temples are there? A lot, in other words.
A lot?
No, I mean, just by your expression, I thought maybe it was more.
No.
Okay.
No. I mean, it like.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that I know of.
Yeah. I mean, there might be some other groups, but yeah,
Okay.
it's
Maybe half a dozen.
not very few. Now you go to Colorado, and they're like every 14th building. It seems to be. So, yes, sir.
Quite a few in California.
Is Sikh, is that like, I know that's over in India, is that similar to Hindu Buddhism?
Sikh is like think of Sikh as a halfway point between Islam and Hinduism.
Okay.
Well, they have a different, a little bit different, but it's like a halfway point. Because one of the reasons was that the area they were in, Kashmir, was taken over by the Muslims at one point. They're like, okay, fine, we'll be Muslim. And then the Hindus come back, oh, okay, fine, we'll be Buddhist. Well, you know what, we're going to come to the middle ground, do our own darn thing. Yes, ma'am.
Does Buddhism address what happens after death of a person?
Yes, and then it changes a lot as you get through the different Mahayana and Theravada and stuff, and they are talking a lot about the afterlife or the rebirth. And I don't think so much in the idea. It depends on how we look at rebirth as a sticky wicket. It's a hard one to explain because rebirth in our tradition, the Chan tradition, really is about like each lifetime is like a breath. That's all you get, one breath at a time. So your next breath depends on what you did in the last breath. Like
So
I
is
said,
it like reincarnations?
yeah, like moment by moment. It's a very quantum physicsy kind of thing.
As opposed to reincarnation.
Was that?
We use the term rebirth.
Yeah, rebirth rather than reincarnation means reincarnate. You come back into another body.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is really a very practical question. When you go to the church, is that what you refer to, the temple?
Here, yeah.
Well, okay, do you sit on the floor or do you sit in the chair?
Either
depends on how your knees are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you explain, I've been in Nepal, can you explain what a stupa is?
Stupa.
Yes.
A stupa is
I mean, I know what it looks like, but the purpose and so
where's
forth.
my dry erase markers? So a stupa looks like it's a dome. Okay, usually with like a spire on the top. And what those are, usually they will have the remains of a monk inside, or a high level practitioner, and sometimes they'll have like other artifacts inside. Usually like scriptures and stuff like that. It's more of like that's where the good stuff is. Here, we keep it. You can't get to it. I mean, some of them you can. You can go inside and see, statues and.
So it's sort of like a
Like a monument. Yeah, like a mausoleum. Many
Okay.
times they're
Or
mausoleums.
like the Catholic churches have those, the same thing back behind them.
The sanctum?
The reliquary.
Yes,
Oh,
they
okay,
do.
yeah. Yeah, similar to that, yes. Yeah, and then was there any other questions? Yes, sir.
Is there any kind of conversation that goes on between people who are Buddhist groups and, say, Quakers? But both groups have meditation.
Well, I suppose, I mean, I'm sure they talk, but I don't know of any, that's a great topic, though.
I've heard they do.
Yeah?
But there was some interaction with the Quakers here, and as was with Buddhists.
Hmm.
And
That's a-
Sufis.
Sufis. Yeah, okay, so like Sufis, for example, you're talking about Sikhs. Sufis are like a whirling dervish,
Oh,
right? So they would spin, and that's to get that basically so dizzy and loopy that you're understanding the spinning of the entire universe and your reaction to the universe and that kind of thing. And the a Quaker is because they're
Well, the
They're
Quaker
moving.
meetings, the ones I've gone to, it's just simply spending an hour in meditation.
in meditation. Yeah.
Just meditation.
Yeah.
Very
And
quiet.
I've heard it too because we know, well, you know Father Lexi, right? So the Archdiocese of California
Oh,
is a friend, and he was saying yeah, we absolutely meditate in Christianity and Catholicism, and their meditations, they just call it Christian contemplative practices. And the only way sometimes we've heard it said prayer is talking to God, meditation is listening. Well, you're gonna do both anyway.
There's contemplative prayer.
Contemplative prayer, yeah. And you look at St. Francis of Assisi, there's a lot of that in there. And his stuff is all very compassionate, especially for other animals and, lesser, what we would call lesser beings, right? Dogs and horses and pigs and frogs and stuff like that. Because they need love too. Yeah. Also, I think that should be it. I think we're out of time. Right,